Welcome to the Chico Creates podcast, where we have conversations with local artists, musicians, and creatives here in Chico, California. This show is presented by and recorded at Maker Radio at 94.5 FM. We are super excited to collaborate with them and share this space. Those of you on YouTube will get to see us as we record. And then you can also hear us on KZFR 90.1 FM every other Thursday at 7 p.m. Also super excited to be on that community radio station as well. And last but not least, got a shout out that I have just dropped a bunch of merch options. I, of course, don't have any with me to show you, but there's hats, mugs, stickers, shirts, all kinds of fun stuff. So go check those things out. And with me today is Sarah Pape. Sarah teaches English and works as the managing editor of Watershed Review and Flume Press at Chico State. She is the co-director of the Northern California Writing Project, where she works with educators in the North State. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, of course. So tell us a little bit about yourself beyond the bio.
Oh, gosh. Well, I am a lifelong Northern California person. I grew up in Oroville and I've lived in Chico for almost 30 years. I love to garden.
Awesome.
Live with my husband Rick and our dog Freddie, and our child Sylvia lives up in Eugene, Oregon, and
Awesome.
Get to live here in this beautiful place near my family. And I also am the literary chair of on the 1078 Gallery Board.
Oh,
so
cool.
I've been doing that for almost 15 years.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. And so how long have you lived in Chico? At least 15 years if you've been on that board.
Long time, yeah. Well, I had my child when I was 18, and we moved here when I was 19. And so they're 28, and that gives you a sense that how long we've been here. But it's been a wonderful place to live, to raise a child, to build community, and to build a profession and a creative life.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and as a writer, like, you know, in your bio that you gave me, you're an editor, a co-director, like you're involved in the schools. It seems like there's a lot of opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, it eventually, if you say yes to enough things, it grows into a life. And so for a lot of years, I was just trying to kind of figure out what pieces made my particular puzzle. And so, you know, everything builds onto the next thing. And so I, you know, did professional development work for a long time through the university. I've been teaching for over 15 years now there and at Butte College. And then, you know, eventually it kind of turns into the next thing and the next thing. So the Northern California Writing Project part is more recent, but I've been working with them for many years in different capacities.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
What brought you here initially to Chico?
I mean, no shade to Oroville, but it wasn't a cultural metropolis by any means. And so
it seems like they are trying to change that a little bit. Yeah, there's some things happening downtown there these days.
But like back in the day, we didn't. I mean, the movie theater was like big news, and we had Walmart, and so we always came to Chico, you know, on the weekends to see movies or to go to Mervin's or whatever the thing was. And so I always, you know, my husband also grew up in a small town in Gridley. And so when we had our child, we were just like, we don't want to raise this person in the place where we were raised. And so it was a conscious choice to try and build a different kind of life. And, you know, we were essentially still kids when we moved here, and we're kind of hard scrabble living for many years before we kind of landed in our different jobs and things. But that's kind of what happens when you have a kid really young, is you're building your life at the same time you're kind of growing up. And so so the choice to live here was really a conscious effort to give our kid more opportunities, and it also gave us like many more opportunities as well. I was always in school and you know, eventually started teaching, so it took time. But it felt like a small enough place where you could know people and have people to be in community with, but also large enough that you could have many different kinds of opportunities, both professionally and just like the natural world, the school options for kids, and just the friendships we've made have been kind of like irreplaceable.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Do you have a favorite local spot or place to hang out?
Yeah, I was thinking about this. I mean, so many. Over 30 years, you kind of feel like you've touched on a lot of the places. But I have a soft spot for like South Rim, Peregrine Point up in the park. Mm-hmm. When I was in grad school, there was a group of us, my poet cohort, and we would like drive up there and like drink red wine and read poems and watch the turkey vultures airing out their wings. It was our very like poety thing to do. Yes. And, you know, beyond that, I'm a big plant person. So Plant Barn all day long, the trifecta of 1078 Gallery, Harvest and Habitats, and Equilateral Coffee. Yes. I mean, there's just so many little hubs that I think are really wonderful. And then, as I mentioned, I'm a big thrift shopper, so I'll definitely make a loop on a given Saturday.
Yep. Yeah. Yep, for sure. Yeah, I was out thrifting this morning, so yeah.
Did you find anything good though?
Yeah. No, I found a cast iron kettle.
Whoa.
Yeah, for like $8.
Nice.
I was stoked about that. Yep. Yep, there's always a treasure to be found pretty much anywhere, any thrift stores.
It's true. Yeah, my aunt is the one who taught me how to thrift, and in LA, and she kind of taught me how to like ignore a lot of things and get immediately to the thing that you really want. And even now, sometimes I feel almost this like energetic pull. Like I'll be driving by Thrifty Bargain, and I'm like, I gotta go in. I just sense that there's something there.
There's something there for me.
And
yeah.
Lo and behold, there always is.
Yep.
So yeah.
Yep.
It's magic.
It totally is, and it is a developed skill to like. It is. I know there's something there for me. Yeah, you gotta tune in to your thrifty intuition.
Yeah, it's like a water witcher. You're just like, where is it? Where's the thing? Yeah.
Totally. So tell us a little bit about your background in writing.
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of been a writerly person my whole life. Was always the English student, you know, loved to read. Was a voracious reader always. You know, and I think I always kind of had poetic thoughts, I guess, or metaphoric thoughts or something. I delighted a lot in the way words sounded or the surprise of words together in different ways. I love music, and so I always paid a lot of attention to the lyrics. And I think I didn't really ever try to identify myself as a writer until quite a bit later, even though it was something, you know, if there was always a creative option in school, I would take it, you know, or you can write a poem about this instead of a paper, I'd write the poem.
Right.
But it took me a really long time to kind of step into that in a meaningful way. And I was kind of a lurker at poetry slams and things like that, and wanted very badly to be part of that community, but didn't quite know how. I'm kind of a shy person. So it took me a long time to even be able to like read work in front of others or share it. And I think that is the place where you kind of step into community, is when you can share it with other people.
Absolutely.
So, you know, during my undergrad at Chico State, I started to take poetry workshops and creative writing classes. And that just kind of swooped me up and brought me into the fold of these people who are still some of my dearest friends. And it was just a really, I don't know, generative time. And nobody questioned whether I belonged there or not. They just were like, yeah, you're a poet, you're a writer. And I was like, okay, I am. And then from there, I just started pursuing more intentional communities and education around it. And so that kind of then just launched me into the rest of my writerly life.
Yeah. Yeah. And have you since performed at poetry slams?
You know, that's not totally my jam, I guess.
There's a certain style that comes with a poetry slam, I feel like.
Yeah, there's the performance element of it, which is definitely not my comfortable space. So I've had to learn how to read my own work in a way that honors what's on the page.
Right.
But I don't feel like I have the chutzpah or whatever it takes to do the poetry slam style. We were just actually I'm teaching advanced poetry this semester, and we were just talking about this the other day, that, sometimes with a slam poem, the other piece of the texture of it is the performance.
Right.
And if you were to read that same poem on the page, you wouldn't necessarily get all the inference or emphasis or any of the things that you get from the people and the embodiment of those words. So I see it as a different art form, but related, like cousins, kind of.
No, that totally makes sense. Yeah. So what led you to your current body of work and your book that was recently published?
My book. It's very exciting. It's taken a long time. And, some of the early moments of what are in the book are from some of those early workshop spaces. A lot of them don't look the same, but, some of the practices I was engaging in or finding out about have then, the lineage of them becomes like the thing that's in my hands now. But it took probably almost a decade of writing, revising, putting it into a book shape, sending it out for publication, getting rejected, going back to the drawing board. So I would say, this particular book has had up to 5 different kind of bodies in a way. Wow. And then, I was kind of on the verge of giving up. And not in a defeated way, but more just maybe this just isn't meant to live in the world as a book. Because a lot of the poems had been published individually, and I thought, well, maybe that's just what this is supposed to be. But I really felt like this yearning to start writing something else, and that kind of felt like I couldn't move forward until this book had found a home.
Yeah, interesting.
So I went really hard on it for another year of working with some dear friends and editors that I have, and we did a manuscript trade and gave each other just very honest but generative feedback. And I took their feedback and I worked on the book for another year or so, and then sent it out, and it was accepted for publication.
Awesome.
So felt hard, and then suddenly it was yes, and I was kind of in this state of disbelief at first, wait, it's not a no? I thought no is what we were doing. So
so that's always how it goes. It's impossible until it's just not.
I mean, so many people had told me that, because especially with poetry, it's very difficult to get a book published. It's a really difficult set of obstacles. There's contests that you have to apply for. You can't just send to someone directly. And so I was trying to be I'm going to participate in the way things are, but I kept thinking why can't it be different? Not to make it easier for myself, but I hear so many poets frustrated with the time it takes to get a book in the world. And I don't know, I'm how many books have just gone into the drawer that don't exist because of
the system,
the gatekeepers, or something that. So it definitely made me question all of those parts. And but I'm very grateful to have had a yes.
Yeah, for sure. So it's called Forgive the Animal.
It is.
And who finally picked it up?
It's a press in Wisconsin called Cornerstone Press. They're affiliated with the university there,
cool.
Stevens Point, and it's kind of a teaching press. So they have grad students working on different projects, and their students do some of the design work. And there is a managing editor who's a professor there, but a lot of the students are doing real work with the books. And
that's cool.
I do that work at Chico State, so it really appealed to me to have that be the way it came into the world too.
I love that. So without maybe giving too much away, what is the title? About?
Oh gosh, well, it's kind of connected to everything.
Yeah.
Well, just in a literal way, there are 9 kind of lyric essay pieces that run throughout the book,
Okay.
and they're all titled Forgive the Animal.
Oh, okay.
And then there are poems that kind of run throughout as well. And those prose pieces are contending with different things. Some of them are more like meditations or prayers, and others are like about research that I did on addiction and recovery, and kind of, I guess, pushing against and with the problem of memory, that remembering our trauma or the hardship over and over keeps us in a place of trauma.
Yeah.
But it's also the thing that ends up transforming our relationship to ourselves and the world.
Right.
So you can't let it go without letting all of it go. And so learning to like integrate and live with is you know, the larger part. And so I guess forgive the animal, like the self as animal, the other as animal.
Yeah.
And kind of just looking at like what's underneath some of the things that we see on the surface when people are suffering, to look below that and just see it as part of our, just like our nature. Our, which is, I think our nature wants to heal. It is maybe perhaps merciful in ways that if we take away the binary of right, wrong, good, or bad, then we can see more clearly.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love that. And that, you know, I love hearing you explain it in this way, because these are all things that I felt like I had like the edge of the thread on with that title. And yeah, and that all makes sense and comes together beautifully. So yeah, I love that. I think it's a great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it became kind of a sticky phrase to me at some point, and I kept kind of rolling it around, just like, is this what I want it to be? And it just kept, if anything, kind of ringing truer and truer as I lived with it. And there are like a lot of animals in the book. You know, I grew up around a lot of animals in a rural space, and they were a big part of my child's early childhood as well. So I think there is kind of an interest in the natural world as a reflection of our human nature as well.
Yeah. Love that. Do you have any creative rituals or routines when you sit down to write?
Well, I don't get a chance to write as much as I would like to during the semester. Teaching really does take most of my time. But I do always write with my students. So if I give them a prompt, I write along with them.
That's great. Yeah.
It just is a way to,
keep the wheels greased.
Going.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I do tend to write more on breaks or over the summer. I've gone on multiple artist residencies to do that work. And so I just try to trust that it will happen when I have the space to do it, and not feel angsty about like, am I doing my work? Am I not?
Yeah.
I just have to, like, I've gone through many long periods where I just wasn't writing at all. I didn't feel compelled. And that scared me at first because I thought, oh no, like, did it go away?
Yeah.
But I see it as more of a cyclical thing in an artistic life, that there are times when we're fallow, but we're also generating what work will come next.
Yeah.
You know? So
yeah, absolutely. That is such a good piece of advice to give to everyone, but especially to younger artists. You know, like there is a time, there's a place. That fallow ground principle is something that we have just totally lost in American culture today.
Yes.
You know, literally with our monocropping and how we produce our food generally, but also just the and social media has contributed to it, the constant need to produce. And yeah, as a I recently became a stay-at-home mom, and I feel like my whole life is fallow. I'm like, I'm just doing these maintenance tasks to try to, and I can barely get those done. Like, and recognizing that, like, it will come back. Like, you need to everything. There's a season, you know. Absolutely. There will be time. You will be inspired again, and not fighting that is going to make it happen sooner and allow you to enjoy your life in the meantime.
Like, yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Trust that it's
it'll
still
come
in
back.
there. And yeah, I mean, parenting is such a 100% kind of job. You don't get to just like take a 15-minute break. Right. You know, it's like whatever's
unless
happening.
Bluey is on.
Right. Yeah. I mean, for sure. I mean, I remember the first time I went to like a major writing retreat called the Community of Writers up near Tahoe. And it was the first time I had left my kid alone for many days.
Yeah.
And I remember I made this little box for them with little presents that they could open each day.
Oh, I love
and
that.
Like this was a time before cell phones, so we couldn't like FaceTime or anything like that. And it was so wrenching, but like I remember getting to this place and being like in awe that there was a space where everybody was devoted to the practice of poetry, and that's what I would get to do for like 5 days.
Yeah.
And I mean, I cried when I left. It was so transformational for me. And what it did was just made me commit that no matter what else is going on in my life, I'm going to set things up so that I can have those opportunities at least once a year.
Yeah.
You know, and even if it's a self-made residency or artistic retreat, I have to give myself protected space to keep my artistic self alive and getting to know who she is, you know. And so I think that's something that also when you're in the midst of the big parenting moments and stuff, just trying to carve out time, even if it's like 48 hours to give to yourself.
Yeah, or an hour
An hour
of nap time.
Sure. An hour. Yeah, let's start
before
with
you
an
fall
hour.
asleep.
Start with an hour.
Someday I'll get those weekend long retreats again.
Absolutely.
I hate to say the cliches, but like, what was I doing with all my time before I had kids?
Yeah.
Oh man. So when you do have time to sit down and write, what does your creative practice look like? What do you need to make it happen?
I mean, I often read a little bit before I write. And so I often have multiple books going. I have a novel or short stories. I have other poets. I have, a memoir or something. I often have like some sort of researchy science thing. So kind of whatever I'm feeling will help me get to where I'm trying to write. And then I often go back through my notebook and just try to find something that's in process already, so I don't feel like I'm facing
a blank page
entirely. And so then I'll kind of work on that a little bit. I always try to leave my revision sessions where I'm not done with something, but come back to a place so that I can have something to start with that feels productive.
Yeah.
In the past, I've done things like pull cards, like my grandmother was a Jungian therapist, and she used to use these things called O cards. And they're just kind of like to get you thinking through your subconscious a little bit.
Yeah.
One card has a word around the frame, and then the other card is an image that's a little bit like impressionistic.
Oh, cool.
And then you try to think about what does that word mean with that image for me. And so it's a little bit like a tarot or something.
Yeah, I love that.
But it gets you just kind of like free associating. And sometimes it leads you somewhere you wouldn't have expected to go. I do think you have to kind of work to unman your conscious brain.
Yes.
So that you can get to what's underneath and what the subconscious is working with. And so I'm not above all sorts of strategies like that.
Yeah.
Pulling mysterious words out of a jar or, pulling a quote from somewhere else. Yeah, I think there's a lot of ways to do it. There's one guy, I think his name is Conrad. He talks about things like putting a banana under your pillow while you sleep and then eat the banana and then write, or like
I love that. Absorb
Conrad.
your dreams and then
so,
That's
so
awesome.
different kinds of chance methods or I don't know. I mean, I think you can go real deep with stuff like that.
Totally.
And why not? Like
no, I like to think of things like that as like at the very least it was a fun thing to try. At the most, there's something metaphysical going on and it's helping you. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I want to call in all the wisdom.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, for sure. I love that. I'm going to try that banana trick.
There you go. Yeah, C.A. Conrad, and
okay.
I think he called them like somatic creative exercises or something like that.
Love that. Oh, I'm definitely going to look that up. I need to write it down. Do you have a favorite poem from your new book that you'd like to share?
It's very interesting. Many people have asked me about a favorite poem, and it's like trying to pick between your kids or something. But I do have one that I thought would maybe be good for this moment.
Awesome.
This poem is titled Certainly. I believe in the words, like caterwaul or eglantine, that the sounds alone can save me. Calendula and borage bloom off the tongue, without care, without water. I know I've hurt someone, that the nights were late, roaming drunk and alone, and then not. Regret, tumults in the gut, sweetness in the mouth is not sustenance. I believe in the brain and the light rail carrying lies and truth equally. When you are born to secrets, you listen hard for clues about how to be. Every second, hunching over you to hear your own mouth, asking your own ear, what? If you think something's wrong, I believe you. I believe you were out wandering too. One way to lose everything is tell the truth, say the words.
Love that.
Thanks.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah. And so why did you pick that one for us?
I think it's, well, because I was thinking about this as a creativity conversation.
Yeah.
And I think that poem is getting at a little bit like what the value of language has been, both in kind of quote unquote telling the truth and trying to understand the reality of the moment. That words have been a lifeline in some ways.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and the line about hearing yourself, like, and it makes me think of you know, sometimes I worry that we try to overcategorize things these days, but having a name for things gives us so much peace also. You know?
Yeah, I think, you know, I grew up in a pretty chaotic early childhood, and I was also a very quiet kid, and I was always trying to kind of like suss out like what's happening. And that hypervigilance in some ways has been like a superpower when it comes to being in the world and kind of learning your environment, but it also feels risky to tell the thing that you know to be true, especially when there's a lot of things that are unsaid around you. So I do think like one of the benefits of this moment is we do have more language for our experience, and more permission to ask for the things that we need in the world.
Yeah, to name it and ask for it. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It's very important. What is the best part about being a creative in Chico?
Oh gosh. Well, I think my friend, my best friend, Hillary Tellison, she's an actress and a playwright. We would always talk about how Chico was this perfect place to try something out that maybe you would be nervous to do in a larger space.
Yeah.
And that was partly because whether it was amazing or whether it failed completely, everybody was like cheering you on.
Yes.
And there's such a amazing community of like amazing audience here where they want you to do well and they're interested in the process and they're interested in the thing that you're trying to make. And it's kind of like having all these like a family or parents who are
yes,
like, we want this.
Whatever you do is amazing.
Right. And
it's a great like bedrock for any creative
totally. And
endeavor.
so, I think that it is an amazing place in that way.
Yeah.
And also it can give you the confidence and the experience you need to then move out into the larger world as well. I've seen that happen for a lot of people. And ultimately it's just, a place where people are just like, yes, and like, what do you got? Like, and so, yeah, and I love that there's all these different places and ways to talk through these things too. So when we get a full audience for a poetry reading at the 1078 on a Wednesday night, I'm like, this place is amazing. I've been to other places in the bigger cities where there's 5 people, so people show up, they're enthusiastic about what you want to do, and there's lots of other people around to ask questions if you don't quite know how to do the thing you want to do.
Chico has a funny way of like catching some really interesting and really experienced people too. So and
it's a boomerang, so people leave, but then they come back.
Yep. So. We see that all the time. Totally. Well, do you have any ongoing or upcoming projects that you're excited about, or still just on the promoting the Forgive the Animal train?
Yeah, I mean, the book has definitely taken center stage. But I did want to mention that in my role as co-director of the Northern California Writing Project, we're going to be running a Young Writers program this summer for little wordsmiths that want to get some words down on paper. So just to check the Northern California Writing Project website and social media. And we don't have our dates up just yet, but it will be in late June.
Great. That's super exciting.
Yeah.
Love it. And where can people find you online?
My personal website is sarahpape.com. I'm on Instagram. And then for the writing project, I believe it's NorCal Writing Project on Instagram.
Great. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me. This is a wonderful conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And we will see you around town.
The Chico Creates podcast is presented by and recorded at Maker Radio in Chico, California. Hosted and produced by Kira Barsotti. Production engineering and editing by Solomon Perillo. Theme song is Take Your Time by Lorna Such. We now have official merchandise: hats, totes, mugs, shirts for the whole family, and more at ChicoCreates.com. Sport your support of the show with official Chico Creates podcast merch. This show is made possible by community members like you. I would personally like to thank Melissa Thede, David LaShawn Montoya, Jonathan Greenfield, Heather Leveroni, Kaylee Huber, Troy German, Kate Thurkill, Bonnie Pipkin, Lindsay Hook, Bree Epley, Scott Grisette, and Johan Caro for their continued financial support of this project. If you'd like to join them, head over to ChicoCreates.com and scroll to the bottom of the page to become a show supporter. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you around town.